he's slaying off the song. Right, the second half he's giving you some very, very crucial information, folks. He's one worth listening to. Anyway, I've got John Patterson and George Fish, professional coaches, more or less, on Skype ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to go straight to them now and let's see where this takes us, folks. So sit back, buckle up, get in for some very good information. I'm not going to get the mainstream media, trust me. Now, good evening, John and George. Are you out there?
Yeah, I'm online. Do you mind if I tape it at this end as well?
You can indeed, yeah, no problem.
Because I've got images on my computer that help to get the political scandals across to the public. And if you want, I can share them with you at a later date, Mike.
Yeah, that's no problem, and by all means record this show and get it out there as quickly as you can. That'd be brilliant. So listen, I'd like to welcome both of you onto the World You Don't Know show. We've been following what YouTube basically put you over the last couple of months, few months on social media, the kind of videos they're putting up. I must say it's very shocking stuff. Can you hear me, John?
Oh, sorry, yeah, it is shocking. In fact, I met George in June of 2014. Now, George introduced me to Gordon Bowden, who has these 14 years of hard, very good documents. And over the last 12 months, we've had dozens and dozens of videos on this. So, what I want to do now is, George is the academic. Now, an hour, there's so much to come out, I would just like, I'd like to hand it over to George.
But before you do, I mean, I've heard the interview with Sean McGuire and Gordon Bowden and yourself on out of the bag. Sean's a friend of mine, I know Sean quite a long time, he's a great man, did great work over here in Ireland. So I have the general gist of what's going on. Basically, Gordon Bowden has been doing an investigation for the last 14 plus years and has uncovered an unbelievably massive fraud involving very high-ranking members of the British establishment. And it's global, it's not just UK based, this is global, but what you focus on is the amount of trillions being siphoned off the British taxpayer. If you want to give my listeners a little background to what's actually going on and what you have uncovered and what you're trying to reveal to people.
Well, okay, I've done the best that I can, right, to promote George's work and George's work. When I met Jordan, and I went up to Derby to meet Jordan, and also present was an ex-Met Coast Protection Police officer, Dave Stevens, so he can back this up. Now, when I laid my hands on my eyes on what Jordan had, and I saw the implications, I was basically been sweating blood trying to get this out to the public. I went into Secret Police Station in June 2014.
That's one way you recorded that, the whole hour you were...
Yeah, you've seen all this.
Yeah, I had to listen to that, it was very interesting.
Well, it's all factual. I've also been to number 10 Downing Street, actually, and that was all recorded, outside number 10. The police officer that was there actually wrote it down in his notebook. I've also been in touch with Black Goldsmith's office. I've also been in touch with the MP for Miss Sussex, who was the grandson of Sir Winston Churchill, and his secretary confirmed to me that Nicholas had received my email a week previous. So basically, this is what I've been doing. I've been trying to promote Professor George Lee's work and Gordon Bowden's work, and now I'd like George to take over, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's no problem, yeah.
That's good.
Good evening, George, how are you?
Really good, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to participate.
Thanks for coming on, I really appreciate it. I mean, this show I don't plan my show, like I get 10 hours, 24 hours in advance and I take it from there, I'm always just winging it.
Well,
I've only got a small amount of research on what you do, so if you could give us a bit of background on what it is you've uncovered.
John and I have done a lot of research on the religious issues, and I think in the last 12 to 18 months I've sort of sussed out the whole of world ownership. Yeah, it sounds a bit corny. Since, you know, the New Testament was written, I now understand all of the elite bloodlines that run the whole world, and because of that insight I'm now being sectioned under the Mental Health Scotland Act, because I'm a threat to the ownership of the world. And the biggest scandal on the globe is the globalisation project, and the sequestration of the issuance of money in every country on our globe. I genuinely wish that I had made the link with Sean. Sean, I believe, lives in Galway.
That's right, Jason.
And that is one of the outlets in Ireland for the issuance of money. I know that they've got a mint there, but what has happened, you know, since Waterloo and all of the geopolitical shenanigans and all of the false news, John and I deeply understand the, you know, the basically the stealing of the central bank in Cheapside by the Rothschilds, and that was the beginning of the slide of the whole world into the sovereign debt crisis that we're now in. Now that's
from what I've researched about history in relation to what you just mentioned there about the Napoleonic Wars, the Battle of Waterloo, for example, at the time obviously there was no mobile phones, so the only way to communicate was by horseback and whatever.
racing pigeons.
Oh, pigeons.
Yeah, so that's how the news was got across from Waterloo to the...
Napoleon had won that war, and then the British economy crashes, and then you move the Rothschilds and buy the whole empire, basically for pennies on the pound.
Just so, and then, you know, the Rothschilds own all of the news agencies like Reuters. They own touring taxis, so all of the people that are travelling and talking in the taxi are monitored, and it's, you know, the same through world history. And what we've now got is the scandalous situation that the government monitors all of the threats to the tyranny, yet in their own home with the phone hacking issues and all of the things that John and I talk about regularly. And every central bank on the globe is now in private hands, and that's a tragedy, because nobody, you know the issuance of money to the public sector, that's doctors, nurses, teachers, councillors all over the country, no one now gets its funding from the Bank of England. If the funding were to be given to the democracies, as the banks were created to do, then we could have a work-free society if we wanted it. Everybody could spend their whole life touring the globe, and, you know, we could have peaceful civilization for the first time in history. It's just a tiny step away, but because all of those banks have now been violently taken over using NATO's armies, the last ones to go were Libya, Lebanon, you know, the Middle East conflicts. Yeah, and
the countries that the Americans and the British have on their axis of evil are usually countries that don't have technology.
well, what they've done, you know, in Iraq, as soon as they take over Iraq, they create the issuance of money from there. And hello, are you still there? Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a very touchy subject. It's the hottest subject in the...
Well, that's interference, I'm not sure.
Can you...
It's only happens when things get sensitive.
Yeah, I know. It's happened to me a few times in this show, to talk to people, and they're revealing, you know, that you could regard as sensitive information.
Well, John understands deeply that... Who was the person who was executed in Libya?
Sorry, could you repeat that, George?
Who was the boss in Libya for all those years? Gaddafi is a hero to his people, because he tried to keep...
George, you're breaking up. I hear you. It's not your microphone connection.
Shall I switch off and join you again, or... No, I'm right up close.
If you don't mind, if you log out and log back in again, it might make a bit of a difference, but unfortunately you sound like you're a million miles away. I can hear John quite clearly.
Explain to him Gaddafi being a hero for his people, John.
George, listen, mate, you can't hear you. Log off and log back in.
We all seen what happened in Libya. I mean, for 40 plus years, he ruled that country, rage-hold in the West, like an absolute dictator. But if you read information that's been leaked online about the kind of rule that he instigated in that country, it was effectively, compared to what we did, like it was a paradise.
It was a paradise. He had actually he drilled into the atmosphere, and he was basically turning the desert free.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, yeah, nice and clear now. But, I don't know what that was, whether it was for the internet signal or something. But we were talking about Colonel Gaddafi there. I was just mentioning there to John. He ruled that country for 40 plus years. And
What?
if we believe Western propaganda, he was an absolute dictator. But I believe the story about him is different.
Well, you could fill the petrol tank on your off-road vehicle for just $5.
Yeah.
And that is unique. I lived in New Zealand. They had subsidies in New Zealand to help the people in the rural communities, because New Zealand's a tiny place. But here at the forecourt, all the prices are manipulated, and it's totally government controlled, totally manipulated, so that the citizens pay every which way up. And that's the same in the, every council in our country now, across, I don't know what it's like in Ireland, I'm less well informed on the Irish economy, but I do understand. Yeah, I'm led to believe, I've got colleagues in New Zealand who told me that all the Irish sectarian troubles were all about socio-economic welfare, and in the, the early noughties or the mid-noughties, those people were beginning to tell me that everything's peaceful now and everything's settled down, and the banking scams and all the bank robberies and all the scandals that you had in the late 90s, all of that has been upturned, and you've now got a more prosperous situation. But when I learn about what Martin Sorrell, have you heard of Peter Marks?
No.
Peter Marks was the boss of the Co-op Bank. He crashed it, and he's the one that crashed the Anglo-Irish banks as well. And he becomes a hero in the banking dynasties, because all of the villains are the heroes. If you steal from the people and you can get away with it, like Peter Marks did for several generations, the Co-op Bank is supposed to be a revolutionary socialist base. And I remember my mum had her savings in the thing, and I can still remember our Co-op banking number. It's a 4-digit number, and it's a thing called a mutual, but they've completely abused that. And John and Gordon Bowden and I now totally understand how there is no regulation on the issuance of money. All the merchant banks that are corrupted run massive debt pools so that they can fund the elite families that run the world, but none of the councils and none of the government initiatives get funded anymore, and they laugh about that. When Gordon Brown took over from Blair, and when Gordon Brown left office and handed it over to the coalition, there was a massive set of belly laughs for them, that they openly declare that the man called, who was the man that took over in the coalition, John? He was an employee of both Barclays and JP Morgan, Peter Laws, I think, David Laws. And they then cover up the fact that they've emptied the treasury in the first 2 months as they negotiate the coalition agreement, and that puts the country into the sovereign debt crisis. And what they have to do then, rather than issue the currency through the government agency, they have to take a loan from the fucking Bank of England, and it's run by a Canadian trained in Basel, who's run the Royal Bank of Canada, and everything that is tainted with the royal affiliation is a theft project. Yeah, and it always has been. And you must have seen in Ireland how much it cost to bring all the revolutionary leaders together. When the Queen came to visit, I think the security bill alone was £8 million a day.
I don't know what the security bill was, but there was, contrary to what you might have seen in the mainstream media, there was actually eruptions here in Dublin. I mean, 2 streets away from where the Queen would have come down, there was actually riots. I'm sure she heard them, but they cordoned off a lot of streets in Dublin, and not too far from where I live myself. And a lot of people were pissed off because we had Irish policemen, Irish guards, telling Irish sovereign-born citizens that they weren't allowed to walk up the street because they were closed for the Queen. And a lot of people weren't very happy about that. And of course the mainstream media here, which is owned by the same people that probably own the British media and the world media in general, they made it out that everybody in Ireland is welcome to Queen. And that was nothing could be further from the truth.
So that's the Murdochs, and it's a total scandal. There is no free press anywhere now.
No, I know that.
Yeah, and the Murdochs, Rupert Murdoch and Prince Charles went to the same school in Australia. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah, it's called the Geelong School, and it's a leading
Obviously.
a secondary school. It's a leading school for the world's fascists. All the Saudi leaders go there, all the Middle East leaders go there, and all the elite American families, you know, the Rockefellers and the banking dynasties. And John knows all about the St Albans equivalent in England. There's also a St Albans school in America, and that's where Rockefellers also go. And all of the things that they do are become jokes in popular culture. And a lot of my research is on the revelations of those jokes. So did you watch the Muppets?
As in the Muppets on TV?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Muppets on TV, Kermie is Kermit Rockefeller. And all of them, you know, all of them are nicknames for all of the world leaders. And it's the same story for the Warner Brothers and the Hanna-Barbera dynasties. Yeah, all of the cartoon characters are world leaders, and it's just a tragedy. And John is aware of how the false news cover-ups take in the comedians like Ali G. His name is Sacha Baron Cohen.
That's right, yeah.
And John can explain to you the significance of the Baron Cohens in world history, can you, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, George, I'd rather you do the academic. I'd rather you fill in good detail.
So Ali G's brother is a professor of neuroscience. He's an expert on autism at Cambridge University. He's a genuine academic. The whole of the Baron Cohen family is a diversion for the Baron Cohens being the high priests of Israel, and one of the first families to marry into the Rothschild dynasty that runs all wars, all sides, all the scams, all the reparations, and all the central banks now. Yeah, and it's incredibly difficult to believe that one family could be as influential as that. But the reason I'm being sectioned by NHS Scotland is because with a man called Greg Hallett, who you're probably aware of too.
Oh, yeah.
He for 2 decades revealed the illegitimacy of the monarchy, and it's a compelling story. He was never litigated against, and I've got it all over my website. And when I wrote to the Queen telling her about the central banking crisis and the scandal that is stealing democracy's funding from its people, what I got in reaction to that, I'd written to her twice already on the economic crashes, and she was quite constructive. And the first letter I wrote to her led to the unique meeting between her and her cabinet, where they loosed Ken Clarke as the minister without portfolio, and they then had the massive riots in Tottenham. Yeah, and all of that was precipitated by me and my correspondence to the Prime Minister in Whitney. But now you cannot contact the Prime Minister by email, you cannot contact the Queen by email. And when I wrote to her on the last day in July, the local doctors who trained first as policemen began to turn on me again. They tried to section me in 2011, but because I exposed the massive healthcare frauds against the patients that year, they were unable to take it forward. But when you start hitting on the royals and the courtiers and the money lenders that still own, you know, all of the governments in Russia and China are just puppets. They're all puppets, and because of the potency of our financial services and boardroom research, we now know that the owners of the Future of Russia Foundation are the Rothschilds, the Prince's Trust, Henry Kissinger, and the massive, you know, the massive people that run the private cabals. You've heard of Chipping Norton Set?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are just a series of non-democratic jokers. Rupert Murdoch's daughter, Lizzie, is married to the Freud family, and the whole of the psychiatric instrument is to silence the innocents. I now believe strongly in that because I'm the victim of it now. And I'm a professor of drug safety, and I've worked on the councils for drug safety as a representative for New Zealand. That's the whole of the South Pacific drug safety effort. And the people in the local surgery, because they confessed to me in 2011 that they get 40% of their salary to give too many drugs to their patients from the pharmaceutical industry that I used to work in. Yeah, that's why they want me silenced locally. Yeah, but really they want me silenced because I now understand the religious Shall I tell him some of the religious jokes, John?
Well, listen, I need to go to a set of ads, so do you mind holding on for 2 more minutes?
Yeah, sure.
And if you could, would you mute your microphones, please? Because I have you on the same fader as I have the computer, and if you leave your mic on, people will hear you through the ad. So if you could mute your mic for 2 minutes, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Alright folks, we'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll take it from there.
Listen online now at liffysoundfm.ie.
Did you know you can listen to Liffey Sound FM live directly from our website? Just visit liffysoundfm.ie and click on the picture of our studio on the homepage. You can also check our updated schedule with shows covering all tastes. Also, our contact details can be found here. So if you or anyone you know is interested in volunteering with us, please get in touch. So log on to liffysoundfm.ie and enjoy the music and chat.
At Finstown Pharmacy, we aim to deliver a professional, caring service in a welcoming and friendly environment. Located at Finstown Shopping Centre, we are delighted to be serving the pharmacy needs of the people of Lucan and its surrounding areas for over 10 years. The team at Finstown Pharmacy are highly trained and committed to providing expert medical healthcare advice. Visit us on our website at finstownpharmacy.com to see our current fantastic special offer. Finstown Pharmacy, your caring community pharmacy.
If you're considering improving your home with replacement energy rated double glazed windows and doors, why not visit Keen Windows showrooms beside Liffey Valley Shopping Centre open 7 days a week. You will find an extensive range of double glazed windows, over 50 composite doors on display, and a superb range of patio and UPVC doors. Keen Windows has earned an excellent reputation in the window business by looking after our valued customers. We offer a professional service from the moment you ring us to our after-sales service. For a free quote, visit our showrooms or visit keenwindows.ie.
Join Mark Hanratty every Thursday night here on Liffey Sound 96.4 FM for his Songwriter Spotlight. Each week, Mark brings you behind the scenes of your favourite bands, your favourite tunes, and the songwriters behind them. Fascinating insight into the music industry's real heroes. That's Mark Hanratty's Songwriter Spotlight, Thursday, 8 to 10 p.m. on Liffey Sound 96.4 FM and liffysoundfm.ie.
Acryla an race on downda ag liffysoundfm.ie. As a new shape Car FM, Joggy Liffey Sound.
Now folks, you're very welcome back. George and Johnny, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm back on the mic.
That's great.
Yeah.
I want to bend your ear about what Gordon Bowden has discovered. Now, from what I can gather from your videos and from what I've been hearing online, that Gordon Bowden over the last 14 years has uncovered a massive fraud. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Okay, well actually Gordon Bowden has just come online. So if George would like to sort of take over, I'll try and get Gordon on if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So the reason John and I are such hot potatoes, Mike, is that we dare touch on the religious topic, and Christianity, I don't know whether or not this might get me in trouble in Ireland, but Christianity...
No, we're not that George found over here anymore.
Do they still do the kneecapping and all the... I used to go on holiday to the Western Highlands and the Western Isles, and we used to get the Irish radio live, and it was clearly still quite violent into the 90s.
Well, there was a lot of trouble going on in Northern Ireland, but where I live down here in the south, like in Dublin, no, it was relatively peaceful, you know.
Yeah, so Gordon and I have revealed you know, the financial interests of Irish leaders like Paddy Ashdown, Martin Sorrell. You know, Martin Sorrell's a huge financial magnate. He works on the profiteering boards with Princess Anne, Nick Clegg, and McGuinness, and all of those people. When we began to reveal that a man called Cahill, who works in MI6 and is an enemy of Gordon Bowden's, he is an advisor to Paddy Ashdown, he's advisor to Gordon Brown and Lord Laird Artivigan. Yeah, and all of that is small beer, but I've got the picture of the Queen meeting the Irish revolutionary presence, and you're aware of how expensive it was for them to come across for that 2 or 3 day visit.
Well, they had her over here for 3 days, and she went into the Garden of Remembrance in Dublin City Centre basically, and she laid a wreath and stuff like that. Now there was a lot of people incensed. I've got a text in here from one of my listeners, Harry, and Harry's a true Irishman, whatever it was on. But he says the IRB, which is the Irish Republican Brotherhood, they wrote our constitution, the original constitution, and the proclamation. But while the Queen was in the Garden of Remembrance giving her little spiel, the IRB were on the steps of Vaughan's Hotel, which is just across the road, reading out the proclamation. So I don't have the Queen.
Well, sadly, you know, almost all of the religious story and all of the denominations, all of Islam, all of the stuff that came out of Constantinople, you know, in Islam, and all of the stuff that came out of Mecca, it's all written by the same family.
Yeah.
And that's a tragedy for the world. The name of that family is the PISO family, and that is the taking the piss joke. It's the name of the Latin American currencies in almost every country. That's the peso. Yeah, the name of the Nile is the Pishon for ages and ages and ages, and all of it leads to jokes like the Garden of Eden being Eden, and that then becomes the Yeah, Yeah, Yemen song for the Beatles. Yeah, and all of it. So the PISO name, everywhere across Zionist popular culture, it's the Life of Pi story with Elizabeth Taylor, it's the Pi the Tiger story, it is yeah, all of the Pistorius trials, the KP nuts is a joke about the original Bible authors, and the biggest abbey in the world before the Vatican was built is a joke about Hollywood 2. Do you know where that was? It's in France. Do you know what its name was?
No.
The Cluny Abbey. So that's all the George Clooney output. Yeah, it's actually pronounced Klein, and that is the biggest joke in world history, because the icon for the Cluny Abbey is, as John Patterson's aware now, it's the Cross Keys symbol, and that is the Saltire flag for Scotland. It's a tragedy. That St Andrew's icon is the joke about false religion. And when it came to Scotland, the Pi word, yeah, that's the Pi. The Pi is the female vagina in Italian, and all of the toe-sucking jokes are because of other translations of that same family name. And on the Paschal candle for Catholicism, the most important Piso of all was Arius Calpurnius Piso, and that begins with the letter A and it ends with the letter O. Arius Calpurnius Piso. He's the man that all of the globalized golfers chant about. You're the man. And A to O is Alpha to Omega on the Paschal candle for the Catholic Church globally. And when it comes to Scotland, can you guess where it started? And it's the whole of the roots of Ireland's sectarian problem is in the answer to that question. Can you guess where the first abbey for Christianity was established on the west coast of Scotland? And you know all about our sectarian violence, even Rangers and Celtic. That comes into all of those tragic deaths of the 66 people at the Ibrox collapse, and all of the shenanigans, all of the sectarian violence, that they're ever so ashamed of, because all of it is for profit. So the Abbey is in Paisley, and that is the Paisley joke. Yeah, and it is Ian Paisley. It's the Paisley pattern scarves and ties, and that is the launch of sectarian violence. And John can explain to you how the King James Bible was totally defrauded. You got a different version for the Church of Scotland to the version that you get for the Church of
England. Any stock in a book like that. I mean, the Bible was written a few hundred years ago, was based on writings a few hundred years before that, which were based on writings a few hundred years before that. To me, it's just bloody hearsay, you know. Well,
that's a very open-minded stance. But when I started to publish the work on the Piso Frugi family being the owners and the issuers of the money in Rome, yeah, they run the mint in Rome, yeah, and the coinage that they produce are the asses, because in the Piso story, the ass is Jesus. It's absolutely ruthless, and all of the world's worshippers give up their time and their lives thinking that that investment of their time and all of their prayers is going to salvage their soul. It's a master plan. It's one of the cleverest plots that has ever been written, and it's all backed up by a really, really clever numerical code. And in the newspapers and in the Freemasonic world, that code is used all the time. The number for Jesus, it's either 600 or 300. And you know, all of the scenes that you get in popular culture, like the killing of the 50 people in the Great Escape movie, 50 is the Piso code word for none. Yeah, meaning literally this is a joke about our cross-party profiteering. And John understands that all of the world leaders in World War II were trained in Tavistock or trained in St. Petersburg to steal from every country across the world, and the number of double agents, and Gordon Bowden was invaluable in the revelation that the Fleming family are a leading member of that. They still run the Future of Syria funding right up into the noughties, yeah, and that takes in all sorts of politicians that are now totally ashamed of themselves, like my local representative, Sir David Steele. Yeah, and so do you see the magnitude of that? Alex Salmond's Saltire flag is a joke about false religion, and all of that stuff that has happened in Ireland through all of that time since World War II, and including World War II, it's engineered entirely by the...
I look at the whole of human history, most of it anyway, even what went on in this country over the last 800 years, it's all been engineered. Even what's going on in this country today, what's going on in the UK today, it's all planned. This is not stuff that's planned over a couple of years. This is all long-term planning. This is intergenerational. So, I know it goes back a long, long way. But what I want to bend your ear about, because I've only got about 20 minutes left, this fraud that Gordon Bowden is talking about, that's linked to Finchley Road in London, involving literally thousands upon thousands of fake companies cycling money off me. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so Finchley Road is one of the hubs. There's a lot of stuff goes on in Bristol, there's a lot of stuff goes on in Birmingham, Liverpool. All of those are the former slaving centres, and they've got this ancient affiliation to the British Royals. But the biggest scandal of all is the central banking scandal. Yeah, that's the ownership of every democracy's bank. Gordon does not go for that so much, but that is the biggest problem that the world faces. On the central bank courtiers in London, you've got people that are leading union leaders like David Prentice, and I've just told you that the public sector's pay has been frozen for 7 years back to back. That sad bastard is the union boss at the biggest union in our country. None of his members get a pay rise. He's on six-figure salaries. He's got dozens of non-executive directorships on the Jewish Policy Studies Unit with the man who's the Liverpudlian that got into trouble about profiteering as well. Is it McCluskey? Yeah, the whole lot of them are on the take from their people, and that's great for the monarchy and the corrupted prime ministers, because they pick the left-wingers so that they can put them, you know, into the limelight if anything goes wrong. But you know that, so all of those huge secrets have come out, but when you start revealing the stories that John and I and Greg Hallett have released about the illegitimacy of the monarchy for 163 years now, that's when...
There's a guy I researched once online, and I think he actually lives over here, and a guy called Maud Dick, John Anthony Hill I think his name was. He was responsible for a great documentary called 7/7 Ripple Effect. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It was exposing what happened on 7/7 in London back in 2008.
Absolutely 100%. I mean, once you've seen that, you've seen everything.
Yeah, but he also he made some other videos, but one of his most interesting videos was that when the Queen got coronated back in the 1950s, 1952 or whatever year it was, she was only a young girl, she was in her early 20s. She had to sit on what is known as the Leah Failstone. Now he was telling a story about two Scottish guys who came to London in the 40s, I think it was, the late 40s or very early 50s, and stole the Leah Failstone. And that the stone that the Queen was coronated upon wasn't the real Leah Failstone, it was a fake Failstone, which means that she can't be the Queen. Is this what you were talking about, not being a legitimate monarchy?
No, it's all about the breeding chambers run by the Rothschild family, who are the world's owners. Yeah? Right. So, what was the name of the two...
legitimate, you know, the legitimate monarch in Britain?
Queen Victoria was the first bride in the whole world to wear the white virginal dress, and that's the Rothschild's joke. Was it not Lionel Nathan Rothschild, John? John?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so, and him and one of his nephews, I think, sired all 9 of the illegitimate children of Queen Victoria. The first one was sired by someone who lived very close to me in the Scottish borders, and that is a man called Blind Prince George of Cumbria and Teviotdale. And since I discovered the Teviotdale bit, and I revealed it to the Queen in a letter pleading with her to take our country back to decency, that's when the big sectioning threat hit me, and now I'm threatened with enforced intramuscular injections twice a month. I've lost my right to work, I've lost my right to drive already because of that gesture, and I'm the most informed man in the world, and you should see the crimes that I've reported with Gordon Bowden that are now a massive breach of the UK Constitution, because none of our politicians are prepared to reply. But the Scottish Justice Minister, the Scottish Justice Minister received and confirmed receipt of all of my revelations that the Trident nuclear weapons thing is run out of Eccleston Square in London as a for-profit operation, and that is totally out of the hands of any government officer. There is no decision-making capacity linked to government, and the SNP were privy to all of that information in the lead up to the referendum. None of them used it. Yeah, it was reported to a man called Michael Matheson. I've got his signed receipts. Yeah, and all of that is the reason that I'm being sectioned for all of the political activity. Gordon Bowden and I revealed the number of resignations that we've had in the government are entirely due to what Gordon and I released, and John's input on the religious fraud has been really courageous, because that is the hottest potato in the whole world, and he's been brave enough to confirm his understanding of it now, and now, you know, the whole of it is, it's just for the politicians, those that can read and write in Greek and Latin for all of world history. That's the launch of the false news, and it's the launch of writing in a place called Canaan in Arabia, and that is when the whole world went tits up. Yet there is no genuine governance, since people can read and write, and it's only the elites that can do that right up to 1914. And that's when we began to train people.
I don't want to get away with this now, George. I'm just going to give you a little bit a briefer of our history. Okay, contrary to what the mainstream media will tell you about Ireland's history. In 1918, under the auspices of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, paid for by the Irish Republican Brotherhood. There was a 32 county, all 32, now we're split into 26 and 6, as of 1922. But there was a 32 county, all-inclusive general election, and the IRB were given a mandate by the people of Ireland, all the people of Ireland, to form a government, and they did on the 21st of January 1919 in the Mansion House in Dublin. Now, of course, that didn't please the British establishment, the Crown, because they had a foothold in this country, and this was the Irish people telling them once and for all to get the feck out of this country and stay out of our affairs. Now, up into 1922 then, there's a civil war was instigated, because our Michael Collins came back from England with a treaty in 1922, or in 1920, in and around that area. And the thing about the treaty was it partitioned the country into 6 counties up the north and 26 counties down the south, and a civil war ensued. But that's what we were left with, 26 counties. Now, they formed a new government then down the south after the treaty. But the thing about it is, in order for that new government to be bona fide, lawful and ratified, it had to be ratified by all 32 counties, by all the people of all of Ireland, but it wasn't. It was only ratified by the 26 counties, which means every government we've had since then are illegitimate, they're unlawful, they're only a de facto government, and they admit this themselves, they're a provisional government. And they don't know right to exist in this country, which tells me that the Brits never left Ireland, they're still here.
Well, the other scandal about politics is now that there are so many tiers that none of them have the power to do anything. Yeah, and so have I got the impression that there is an Irish representation in Westminster?
I'm not sure, I don't know, to be honest with you.
I think there is. I think I used to lobby hundreds of people, because what I reveal are massive, nuclear extinction threats, and it's really dangerous to do that on your own. So every letter that I've written to politicians goes to 500 people, which is why all of them know that there's no place to hide. And what they use is that if you're not my constituents, I don't have the time to dedicate to your issue. But all of the ministerial stuff that Gordon and I have reported, and all of the stuff that his representatives in Derby refused to receive, that's a huge breach of the UK Constitution. And I get the impression that when you look at the Westminster makeup, and you can find Irish representatives in those halls of power too, but I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, well, in this country, like the Irish Republican Brotherhood, they hold the legitimate right to form a sovereign government, a proper Dáil and proper courts in this country, but unfortunately it's been usurped. What we have here is, our parliament is called an Oireachtas. That's what it's an Irish name for it, the Oireachtas. But if you look at Article 17 of Sectarian, which is the Free State Handbook that King George V foisted upon this country, it's an oath of allegiance to King George V, his heirs and successors, and that's still there to this day.
Well, wasn't there a huge ruckus in 1917 when Ireland was pulled into World War I?
Well, we weren't pulled into World War I, we had nothing to do with it.
Oh, I thought there was a period where you...
It was here in 1916. That's 100 years ago next year. There's going to be big celebrations here, although it's been hijacked anyway.
So tell me what happened in 1916?
Well, in 1916 the people of Ireland rose up against the British Crown.
And
at the time 1916, as I'm sure you're well aware, Britain was on its knees because of the First World War. Germany had Britain exactly where he wanted them. This is prior to the Americans being brought into the war via the Zionists.
I thought in that year that there was a huge ruckus about Ireland being conscripted into the conflict, and that some of the Queen's courtiers took it.
Don't get me wrong, there was thousands upon thousands of Irishmen who fought in World War I and World War II, but we were never as a nation a part of that war.
Right, okay.
I mean, I don't know why we went, to be honest with you. Every other bloody country on the planet seemed to be involved in it. I've got a few minutes left, I need to go to the last set of ads, so do you mind holding on for a couple of minutes?
No, and we switch the microphone off again?
Yeah, if you do, that'd be great, that'd be brilliant. Folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes with these two lads. I just need to queue up the ads, so just give me a second for a second 22 ads. Now folks, I'm going to go to a set of ads and I'll be back in 2 minutes, so I'll talk to you very shortly.
Liffey Sound, 96.4 FM.
Have you missed all your favourite shows on Liffey Sound FM? No problem. Simply log on to liffeysoundfm.ie and click on the podcast section at the top of the page. Here you'll find a great selection of our shows for you to listen back to at a time that suits you. Alternatively, you can visit mixcloud.com/liffeysoundfm to get full list of podcasts available. Liffey Sound is your community station.
Have you explored or experienced any of the many attractions of the Liffey Valley? Not the shopping centre, but the beautiful valley of the Liffey on your doorstep. If you haven't, you should start now. You don't know what you're missing. Liffey Valley Park Alliance has been lobbying for the conservation of this marvellous amenity and the exploitation of its tourism potential for the creation of employment in the area. We welcome the commitment by South Dublin County Council in their 5-year tourism strategy 2015-2020 to highlight and promote the valley as a major tourist destination. Creation of a Liffey Greenway from Selbridge to Dublin City is an important feature of the plan which will make the valley more accessible for locals and visitors and boost the local tourism economy.
Tune in to Sports for You on Liffey Sound at 96.4 FM every Friday. That's Sports for You with Terry Callahan, Stephen Bramble and Paul Thompson, bringing you the best in local and international sports. Every Friday, 8 PM, Liffey Sound, 96.4 FM.
The crack is mighty at Reed's on the River with Irish cabaret and dinner for €35 every Sunday evening at 5 PM. Also, try our new Carvery menu. Phone 601-0854 for bookings and further information. Reed's on the River for great food and fine beverages.
On 96.4 Community Radio at its best. Liffey Sound FM.
Now folks, you're very welcome back. George and John, you still with me, are?
Shall I profile the money laundering thing for him, John? So the crimes of Finchley Road are...
Because we've only got a few minutes left, and I want to try and get as much of that out of you as I can, because we've about 7 minutes left.
Finchley Road is one of the major hubs, and you've got people like... Who's the Notting Hill magnate, John? Hollick. Lord Hollick runs the hub at Finchley Road, and it's a massive crime centre for all the British Prime Ministers since Mrs Thatcher. Yeah.
What is it exactly that they own there? Running fake companies or something, is it?
So they've got companies like Temple Secretaries and Swift Incorporations, and what they do is they do a thing called pump and dump. So if you take money out of Britain in packages or bundles of less than £1 million at a time, it's beyond regulation. And all of the people that ran the banking crash in 2008 are doing all of that all of the time. In 2008 it all happened in concert over a series of months, but now they do it on a minute to second time scale, and it's all totally computerized. And I've got a list of companies run by Rebecca Brooks, and it's pages long. Yeah, and she's running those companies in league with the Chip and Norton set and the Prime Minister's private interests. And
they're stealing, like the British taxpayers' money?
Yeah, the House of Lords has got the leading statistician for our country, who's age 95 now, friend of Melvin Bragg's. He's Lord Klaus Moser, and he's got all of his companies registered in the House of Lords. Yeah, he's the one that releases all of the false statistics that inflation's running at less than 1%. Yeah, and when the energy bills go up 20% year on year, that becomes impossible for the ordinary citizens to follow that, and that's a massive pan-continental European fraud, because all of the energy company owners are now in Spain or Portugal or along the Baltic coast, or even in Russia with the Gazprom thing. Yeah, that's a pipeline right across Europe, and all of that is planned by Gerhard Schroeder, the former Chancellor in Germany, and all of the nuclear power stations are being fear-mongered out of business. They've closed a couple in Scotland just in the last couple of years, and that's Prince Philip, who's at the take perpetually at the head of the World Wildlife Fund and all sorts of profiteering organisations, including Greenpeace. Yeah, all they do is...
Would, you know, be the head of the Worldwide Fund for Nature and at the same time go to Africa shooting lines.
Well, that's right, and that's their cover-up for it. But Camilla's brother was a huge magnate with JP Morgan and with the World Wildlife Fund, and God has a huge sense of humour because he died yeah, in an executive hotel in New York, and he's on the take. And I did not publicise that when Camilla was still grieving for him. His name is Mark Shand. Yeah,
I remember that. I remember
yeah, it's amazing, and all of this.
It's a bit ironic, really, George, because he was killed in a revolving door.
That's right. It was one of the elite hotels in New York. But so what happens is that when John mentioned Finchley Road, there's a place called Lothian Road in Edinburgh, and it's where Sean Connery was born and raised. And that's quite ironic because Sean Connery now lives in the tax havens. If Sean Connery were to come back and work for the Scottish people, we could be freed, but instead he's a friend of David Murray's, the thief at Rangers, and the thief in the massive money laundering system or in the globe. His companies and the major hubs for them are registered in Dunedin, where I worked for 6 years. That's all for tax evasion reasons. But in Lothian Road, you've got the Rothschilds again. Yeah, they're all over world ownership, and what I've revealed in recent months is that their links to Auckland and Parnell in Auckland, it's a massive... Have you heard of a Ponzi scheme?
Yeah, I know the Ponzi
Yeah,
scheme.
just it's a pyramid selling scheme, and all of the products are virtual products. And Prime Minister Cameron got caught up in that with a company called Vedanta. Yeah, it's just coupons and shares, and they crashed the shares in Britain, crashed the company, defrauded all their investors, even in the shareholding sector. Yeah, and that then gets sold on to the Indian Prime Minister Singh in India, and he's decent enough to resign when all of that was exposed by Gordon and Peter Eyre and me. And it's just tragic that nobody gets a decent pension now, because all of the scams that are run from those massive, either the merchant banks who run the massive debt pools, and when the people that cannot afford to pay for their council house rent, yeah, they get banged up by G4S and all the fraudulent companies that have been created to protect and keep the tyrants safe. But those G4S is run by Lord Condon, who's the head of the Met Police, and the Met Police are into everything. Yet Lord Stevens of Kirkwelpington, who was, I believe, part of that 7-7 scandal, yet he's now the Chancellor at Northumbria University, which is in Newcastle, and Manningham Buller's the Vice Chancellor at Imperial College London, and all of my colleagues in the pharma frauds, yet that also run Ponzi schemes. They pretend that the pharma companies close, but the company I used to work for is still a Ponzi shelf, registered in the city of Edinburgh, and the people that I worked for at Wellcome, like Sir, I forget the name of the man, but he's now on the Forbes rich list. All of it is scammed, all of it, including that Anglo-Irish bank and the things that, you know, the
you know what happened to this country? I mean, this country was robbed left, right and centre, and it's still being robbed. But listen, unfortunately I have come to the end of the show, so I have to cut you off now and leave it at that. But hopefully I'll try and get you back on again in the near future, because it is an interesting subject and I'd like to learn a little bit more about it.
And if you've got financial experts in how the economy is running, I'd love to know how many central banks you run, where they're located. And
there's one central bank here in Ireland that's in the middle of Dublin, it's in Down Street.
So that mint in Galway, what is that been closed then?
I haven't a clue now, I didn't even know the mint was in Galway.
Yeah, I'm led to believe that it was there for a long period of time. And yeah, but it's been enjoyable, and I'd love to do it again.
Definitely, yeah. Do you have an Anglo website you can give out, and I'll give it out to the listeners?
Oh yes, so that's, and it may well be censored heavily now, yeah, because all over the front page you've got all those treasonous revelations about the illegitimate monarchy and how they run the narcotics laundering all around the world, and how the people that killed Greg Hallett are the fundraisers for the IRE. That's Peter Williams QC, the head of the judiciary in New Zealand. He's the chief fundraiser for the IRA, and all of the training in the IRA takes place in fascist Spain, where a lot of the monarchy shenanigans in the bedchambers go on. John and I have put our necks on the line in making videos on those themes as well. That's King Juan Carlos, another guy that shoots his own brother and shoots the buffaloes.
George, listen, unfortunately lads, I do have to leave it there because it's a minute to 10 now and my transmitter is actually going to switch off, so I'll have to wrap it up there. But if anyone wants to see our YouTube videos, you're all over YouTube.
So it's Prof George Lee's front/revelations, and John's YouTube channel is what?
John Patterson.
Patterson, okay.
And mine's is George Lee's, and also Kelsonian Smithsonian. If you put all those things together, you'll get 500 videos on stealing by governments from the people all across the globe.
Well listen, thanks very much lads for coming on, I really appreciate it.
It's a
get you on again, so thanks very much.
Pleasure, Mike. Cheers.
Cheers, bye bye. So ladies and gentlemen, that was John Patterson and a guy called George Lees. Interesting interview. It was a lot to take in, to be honest with you, and a lot to absorb, but there you go. You can look up Gordon Bowden. Apparently he's uncovered this massive fraud going on in the UK, so if you want to look at it, go on to YouTube, have a look at his videos. But until next week folks, this has been the world you don't know. I just want more to enjoy our being held a legitimate sovereign government. We know that, they're all out on the courts. People cannot be evicted under a sovereign government. Bar courts and sheriffs evict the Irish in 2015 under the Crown. Free State Army funded by the Crown. Shot through Republicans. Fair play, Mick. Getting the info out at every opportunity. Gotcha, that's what we're here for. Folks, until next week, this has been the world you don't know, and I'm going to leave you with a great tune by Muse, and this is a great song called Uprising. Until next week folks, take care and be fine.
You still there, John?